I'm Brian Vitorisi. I'm with BPS Tech. I'm a digital learning specialist, and joining me today is...
I'm Sarah. I'm an instructional coach with BPS Tech, and we're going to provide a brief introduction to this tool called Whiteboard Chat. Brian, I think you were starting to do some of the housekeeping.
Yeah, so just a reminder that this webinar is going to be recorded so we can share the slide deck or the slide boards with you later for future use. You've all been very respectful in muting yourself as you're entering the room. You can see all your names. It's just great. So we don't have to rename anyone. And in your Zoom, there's a Zoom feature for live transcripts. So if you look down at the bottom, Sarah, you may have to enable that too.
All right, let me make sure I have that turned on.
Enabling the live transcripts. So if for the closed captioning, I can see the script.
Great.
It has been enabled. So if on your toolbar under live transcripts CC, if you want to click on that and follow along with some text, you can.
And we'll share this whiteboard.chat slide with you momentarily, but here we have our contact information. And if you click on our Bitmojis, we also have links to our Calendlies where if you want to explore this tool more, we're happy to meet with you to do that. So for today, we'll kind of go over why Whiteboard.chat as a tool. We will go over the page navigation. So, the tool has all of these different functions and whatnot. We'll give you a brief overview of what the tool can do. We'll give you an opportunity for you to try it out from the student view. And then I will demo how I set up that student activity for you, so you kind of get a sense of like how I set the page up. We'll show you some tools like inserting a PDF, drag and drop in Immersive Reader, which we think are kind of some most helpful tools teachers might find helpful. And then we'll provide some resources. There's a whole bunch of features that Whiteboard.chat is able to do. And so we'll link to some tutorials that you can refer back to. And then at the end of the session, we ask that you fill out a feedback form. And then that way we can note your attendance and then also send you the recording. Okay, so first, why Whiteboard.chat? I'm going to go straight to their website, and you would just access this by going to whiteboard.chat, and it pulls it up. So it's a tool where you can draw, share, and collaborate. And once you come here, you don't really need to log in. You just press the Start Drawing button, and you have the option to start teaching, which opens up a blank board, and you can start writing or creating content on it. Or you could create a collaborating board, which is where you would invite other people on. Or if you have signed in and you have created other boards, you would press Manage Boards, and then you would access the content that you've already created. So Whiteboard.chat is a tool we want to share with you because you have the ability to teach, monitor, and coach. So here's a screenshot of, for example, the teacher has 9 students in their class. They can see the students working in real time on their individual boards. But the cool thing about Whiteboard.chat is that you also have the ability to create collaborative boards within the lesson. So students not only can work individually, but you can watch them work collaboratively too. I know that a lot of BPS teachers we've heard use another tool called Classkick, which is similar to Whiteboard.chat. But it appears that Classkick, you kind of can only monitor the students working individually. But with Whiteboard.chat, we found that it was helpful because you can also add collaborative pages and then kind of pick and choose which ones are individual activities and which ones are collaborative. And then lastly, some great reasons to use. It's free. You can connect up to 100 people to your lesson. You can export your boards to PDF. And then you can easily observe and coach multiple individual users. So I also kind of wanted to just go through and compare Whiteboard.chat with some of the other commonly used digital whiteboards like Jamboard and Classkick. So again, they're all free or freemium tools. Whiteboard.chat, it said it was free, but actually they just added kind of a paid element. But the paid element basically is the free version basically is you have unlimited boards, but you have to go in and manually update them or else they'll be deleted after 2 weeks. But if you pay money, then you get them for free forever and you don't have to manually update them. You know, Jamboard's great, it's free, you have unlimited Jamboards in your drive. Classkick, I think the free version, you're limited to 20 boards, and then you have to start deleting those boards before you can create new ones. So with the free versions, Whiteboard, you get access to everything. Jamboard, you have access to everything. I believe the free version of Classkick, you get like decent access to everything. Maybe a couple of features are limited for you, but for the most part, they're there. Like I mentioned earlier, Whiteboard.chat, you can watch students work independently as well as collaboratively. Jamboard, I know a lot of teachers use it for students to work collaboratively on one board. But if you do want to watch students work independently, then you have to pull up like 30 different screens and toggle between all the screens. So it's a little less clunky, or it's a little more clunky that way. And then with Classkick, it's great. You can watch all the students working individually, but then you don't have the ability to watch them work collaboratively. With Whiteboard.chat, you really have a lot of control over what the students can and cannot do, and the students cannot modify anyone else's work except their own unless you turn on the feature so that they can modify it. Jamboard, I know a lot of times teachers run into the issue where you can edit each other's work. So you might accidentally like delete something that someone else has written. And Classkick, students cannot modify each other's work. Whiteboard.chat, you can provide real-time feedback with voice, with the video, with notes, with drawing, with writing. Students can raise their hand. They have like a stoplight feature that says, you know, go faster or go slower. Classkick can do a lot of those similar things, and I think a lot of teachers enjoy that as well. Jamboard is more limited and just gives you kind of the feedback with writing, but no voice recording feature. So the great thing we think about Whiteboard.chat is it has a customizable toolbar. So it has so many features, but the downside is because it has so many features, it can be a little clunky to use. So we think like, you know, if there's something that you've been trying to do, but the others just don't cut it, Whiteboard.chat, probably there's a way you can figure out how to do it in Whiteboard.chat. But because there's so many like possibilities with Whiteboard.chat, it's just a little bit clunkier to use compared to Jamboard and Classkick. They're like really streamlined, simple. You know, you kind of have a set toolbar, but then you're kind of limited with what you're able to do with it. So just kind of a brief overview of those tools.
Thanks, Sarah. So our page navigation, we're going to go over this. There's a whole lot of information here, almost too much information to go through. So looking at the top of, so I'm going to start at the top of the page where Sarah's pointing towards that flower. If you're working with your students and you don't want them to go ahead and you click that flower, it freezes everybody's board. So it's a nice way to stop the students, or in the middle of a lesson, you can just stop and you can go over something with them. It's like a 10 to 15 second freeze, which is nice. And they change it every season, we've learned, because last 2 weeks ago, that was a snowflake. So we're now a flower. So I'm interested what the summer is going to look like, as well as the fall. Next to that, we have our paint palette. And this is where your manipulatives are. So Sarah, you can see that the paint palette opened at the bottom. And this is the part we were talking about getting a little clunky and a little laggy at times. So that's interesting. So your paint palette allows you to change the color of your what you're typing or what you're drawing with, but it also allows you to open up your manipulatives. And there are so many manipulatives in pre-built manipulatives in Whiteboard.chat. So again, that was Sarah clicking on the paint palette there. And to change your manipulatives, you would click where Sarah just did, and you can see all these different topics. So Sarah, do you mind clicking on, just start on the math one. So the math one, you have all these different math symbols that you can click and drag. Sarah, do you mind just clicking on one and dragging it into the board? Yeah, there you go. So you can you click and you just drag those right into the board, and students have that ability also to drag those into their board. They also within the manipulatives, if you click there, Sarah, and down to manipulatives, we found that Whiteboard.chat lends itself very nicely to mathematics. You have 100 blocks and all these different math symbols here, math, again, manipulatives or tools that the students can use and manipulate and turn them on the page. So it's there's so much here. There's currency, there's fractions, there's number lines, there's way a lot of stuff. And the one thing we've learned in watching the webinars with the gentleman that created Whiteboard.chat is that in the class, people will say like, oh, can it do this? And they'll say, oh yeah, we'll make that change. And then usually within 2 weeks, they make that change. It's kind of weird. So that they just go ahead and do it. And before you know it, it's there. So, I mean, there's too many manipulatives for us to go through all this, but you can see that, there's some biology stuff. There was some math, there's shapes, there's currency, chemistry, Earth Day stuff. So they just keep adding and adding. So it's unbelievable how much stuff they have here. So next to that, we have our timer. Oh no, our raise hand feature, sorry. And that's if you're a student and the student clicks on that and they raise their hand, Sarah has another option here, another page as a student.
So this is, yeah, this is from a student view. If I raise my hand here, actually, let me put them side by side so you can kind of see what happens.
So if Sarah clicks on, she's going to raise her hand on one board, on the student board, and on the teacher board, you can see that instantaneously that Sarah is raising her hand. So now you get that, that student now needs help. So they can be very mindful. You can be mindful about that student needing help and not calling out their name, or if it's a shy student, they can do that very privately and only they see that and no other student would see that. And they can also request to go to the bathroom that way, or, gee, you need to speed this up because you're going too slow, or can you please slow down at this point? So that is a nice feature that they keep changing, because as of last week, I don't think they had the bathroom feature involved in that either. The clock it's a timer, just any other timer, but it's nice because if Sarah clicks on that and she says, I want this to go for 3 minutes, she puts it in, hits start or set the time. All the students get this timer and they know that they have time's going to go in 3 minutes. So, and then the students can see that it's counting down, that they have 3 more minutes until they have to, rejoin the class or be finished with the project or the activity. The question is, how do you get rid of the clock? There we go. Next to that, you can see Sarah's, the gear, sorry, the settings. Yeah, I missed that one. So the settings, you want to click on that. The settings changed unbelievable when Sarah and I were going through this the other day. But at the top, Sarah, just want to start at the top on this one. The default tool for Whiteboard.chat is not the select tool, unfortunately. So if you mind clicking on that, it's actually, I believe it's the brush tool. And we learned this the hard way. Every time we were clicking, we kept getting the brush. And if we wanted to move something, we kept writing over it. So the way we learned this was like, let's make this our select tool. So go in and choose to change it to the select tool. You can change your font a little bit lower for your text box, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll talk about how you can do that also. And this is where you can change your tools for the students. You'll see on the left-hand side of this screen, the toolbar is very big in the purple. We have all those different tools. And if Sarah, if you want to click on the student view for a minute, you can see that the toolbar is quite extensive for the students. So Sarah can go into the teacher view and she can customize the tools. And by clicking on the boxes, that would shut off those tools for the students. So we don't want them to manage the board. We don't want them to do a lot of this stuff. So if you go in, we're going to shut off the tools. Let's shut off the upload file and the lasso. And we'll click save. And we'll go back to the student page. And I think she just has to refresh the student page. So this is where it gets a little glitchy at times. So, and the student page,
I think it narrowed down a
It,
little.
it narrowed it down. There aren't as many features there for the students to choose from. So that is a nice way to minimize the tools that the students can use.
So if you're working with elementary school students and you only want them to be able to draw or, resize, then they only have those two options, for example.
Yeah, thank you. And now the icon of Sarah just is shows you which participants are in the class right now, participant panel, and we can see that Sarah's in there. And this is where you would create your group board to collaborate with your students. The Whiteboard.chat people, you can create a chat, but they've even said you're better off using your Zoom features for the chat than their features, because theirs are still a little clunky, and they haven't figured that part out yet, is what they have actually even said in webinars. So next to Sarah's icon, there are 3 vertical dots. And those are our actions. And those, you can open up your different class boards. You can view engagement reports. You can see who's in the page. So Brian, sample student, and Sarah in there. It was actually kind of nice. We were playing around with this the other day. There was a, sorry, if you click on those 3 dots again, sorry. And you can take a poll of your students. So if you go down to new poll, see how they're doing, and you could ask them a question. So I'm having a hard time reading what your page says. So send them poll. And, do you want to sit in the front of the class?
Or I think we would like yes or no.
Yes or no, yeah. And then click send. Now it's not going to work for us. It's going to be a little.
Let's try it again. Let's see if it showed up.
So it's being a little clunky for us today.
It doesn't seem to be working.
Send a poll.
Nope, we'll have to move on.
We'll move on. We'll get back to that a little bit later. And the invite button. So there's 2 different ways you can invite your student. Well, there's more than 2. So one, you can click on the invite.
Being laggy.
Being very laggy today. So when you click on the invite button, it'll give you a code that you can share with your students in Google Classroom, or they could go to whiteboard.chat and type in that join code, so the OEEM. So they could type in that, or you could just put that whiteboard.chat link in Google Classroom. And then in the upper left-hand corner also of the screen, completely opposite of the invite, there is a link there that you can actually copy and then send it to the students that way too. I don't know why our participant thing's not going away, but it's just not going away today. That's okay. In the bottom right-hand corner, where Sarah's name is, so you have the opportunity to change your name. You can change your pen color. So one thing we've noticed that if you change your pen color after, it's going to change the color of your board also. So Sarah's going to go from pink to, or purple to whatever color. You can notice that the color of her board changed. Hi, Iris. Thank you for joining us today. You can also change the brush thickness on the first slider. You can change the opacity of the pen. So if you want that brush to be a marker, I'm not a marker, excuse me, more of a highlighter. That's how you can use that. And then you can change your font size as well as your font type by clicking on the T. You can change your font from the default is Chewy. You can change it to whatever you wish it to be that they have. They have limited fonts there, excuse me. One thing I didn't say though is on the brush on the line one, Sarah, you can change your line style from a solid line. So over to the right, you can change it from a solid line to dotted lines or dashes or something like that. Okay. And then on our left side, we have so much going on over here. It's not even funny. The toolbar is quite extensive. There's so many things that I would love to go over with you on here, but I think we'll be a little short on time if we start on this. Really, as the teachers, you want to you want to focus on, the manage boards. That's where you're retrieving your saved boards. You want to focus on your tools, which is the wrench, and this above that, the select tool, which is the pointer, and the move and resize tools. And when you in a live view, if you just hover your mouse over that, you can see that it will tell you what those tools are. Okay.
Right. So here we're going to invite you into this whiteboard.chat now as a student. So I'm going to just copy this code from here and put it into the chat in the Zoom, the Zoom chat. And if you click on that link in the chat, you will hopefully be able to join this slideshow, this whiteboard.chat board.
Sarah, you may want to move those pigs out of the boxes.
Oh, okay. Let me go to instructor. I think I was in student view for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I can see Christina, Erin, Haruna have joined. And so we'll just give you some time just to play around with it. You can try to do the activities and see if you can accomplish them, or just kind of play around with the toolbar and take some time to play around with the page.
Well, I'm going to try to figure out that poll question here. I'm just going to mute myself for a second. That's all right.
Yeah. And as you're playing, since we're a small group, if you have any questions, just feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask. We can try to troubleshoot. And note on my instructor grid view here, I can see everyone working in real time. So here I can see that Marian and Iris are on page 1. If you want to scroll to page, I think it's page 6, then you can do the activity with us. Perfect.
All right, Sarah, I got stuck. I don't know how to change the color of the font.
Great question. Okay, let me go to my book. So in the bottom right-hand corner here, I don't know if you can see let's go back to my bottom right-hand corner, that little rectangle.
I see it now. It wasn't showing. I think I had to scroll down or something. I was like not seeing that. Okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
So it's funny, those pages or their boards are very large, and sometimes items they get hidden sometimes, and you don't see them.
Gotcha.
If I type, if I'm using text, can I move the block of text so it fits better in the green box?
Right, so you'll want to use the select tool. Move and resize.
Move and resize.
And then click on the text box, and I think you can move it a little bit.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, Marianne, were you saying something is hard? Yeah, it's clunky. It's clunky to use at first, for sure.
This is only my second time using it, and I feel like using it the second time, I was so much quicker in like going over to the select and resize tool and like move it over. And even just like it being the second time, I feel like I was so much faster and it was so much easier to use.
Great, thanks for that feedback, Christina. So here, I'm actually going to try and showcase someone's work, and we'll see what that looks like for you all. So I'm going to open my class boards, and I'm going to showcase Haruna. Hopefully, let me see if this works. Oops. That work? Nope.
Click on click on Haruna's name on her icon picture. Sorry. But no, go, yeah, go up there.
Yes, okay, that's what we do. Now we're
I think if you click on, yeah, then you can
okay.
showcase.
So Haruna, if okay with you, we're going to pretend to showcase your work. Go right ahead. See if it works. Maybe you can go to single view.
HHH, is that Haruna?
I don't know why I typed an extra H in there.
You're in Haruna's board, I believe, Sarah. No, maybe not.
I think it is. This
I
is
am.
up on top. It
Yeah.
says student board. So you
Says-
just have to scroll to the 6th page. I think.
Okay, so now I am in Haruna's board. And does everyone else also see Haruna's board? Or I guess it depends on what I'm showing, right? Yeah. So now I've toggled to Haruna's board and we can see what she's been working on. Oh, it said you were wrong? 122?
No, I tried it once wrong, and then
Oh, I see.
I just wanted to see what it would say. And then I
Oh.
put it back
I
in
guess-
there.
We'll take about another minute. What do you say, think,
Oh, there
Sarah?
it goes.
Sounds good. Yeah.
It still gives you the stars, even if you're wrong. It just doesn't give you any points. I tried it as well. The stars still came up, but you just don't get the points.
Is it like all or nothing? There's no partial credit or anything like
No
that?
partial credit.
Really? I was missing one little box and it gave me a 0.
All or nothing, 100 points or nothing.
This
You
is
can also
old,
set the points. So it's like 1,000,000 points or nothing.
this is old school math, not new school math, right?
So any initial thoughts about just playing with the tool?
The resize is so sensitive. I wasn't expecting it to like blow up on my screen. I'm used to like, I use Seesaw a lot, so I'm used to dragging the circles.
Hmm.
And in this case, just moving my finger on the tracking pad makes it move so quickly.
Yeah, I found that the move and resize, sometimes when you can get the corners to move, it's a little easier to control, but otherwise it like expands and contracts a lot. Yeah. So I can now just kind of show you quickly how I set up that previous page, so you can just watch me go through it. So the first thing, we had a couple of text boxes with directions. And again, one thing that we noted is you kind of want to know the color you want to use ahead of time, because you can't go back and change the color after. So for now, if I know I want the directions to be this purple color, let me choose that color first, and then type in my directions. And here, while I'm in my text box live, I can kind of like change the size of the box there. But to resize it, I would want to make sure that I click the move and resize button, click here. And this is actually where it's a little bit easier with when you see the 4 circles, then the resizing is a little bit easier. And the upper left-hand corner, you can rotate. So let me just do another text box here. I had, to draw the rectangles, I went to my tools, and in tools, you'll have a whole bunch of options. I scrolled down to shapes and just drew some rectangles in. And again, you would kind of want to know the colors you want to use ahead of time. To get the pig, I went to my palette that Brian had mentioned before. And again, you want to click kind of on the words and not the drop down button, but I'm going to search for pig. And here's that pig that I use. So I'll insert it a few times. Okay, and let me move. So again, I have to go to the move and resize tool and move my pig.
Sarah, you may have to erase that pig.
I think so.
Yeah. One thing that I find that's kind of clunky about it is if you put an object in there and then you try to put the same object in, it almost freezes the first object in place.
Okay.
So,
All right, let me insert the pig one more time. Go. And the first directive was, I think, to copy the pig, and then the second one was to clone it, or to move it versus clone it. So to do that, I'm going to click my select tool, and I'm going to click on the pig. And when you do that, you'll have a whole bunch of options for what you want to do with the pig. Here, I'm going to enable student move so that the student can actually move that element. Otherwise, you can really control what you want the students to be able to move or not move. And for then the second pig, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to enable the student to clone it so they can make copies of it. Okay, so it's kind of either one or the other. When I had the make 122, I used those math manipulatives. So I went back to manipulatives. Block, block, one block. And these are gigantic, so I'm gonna make sure I press my move and resize tool and kind of make them a little bit smaller. And then I had that little box where you had to drag your answer into the box, and it gave you, you could check your work. So that is actually called a drop zone. So I want to create a drop zone. So what I'm going to go to my tools and go to drop zone.
What Sarah's doing right now is not really your basic functionality. This would be more of one of the advanced lessons, and we do have a tutorial on how to create your own drop zones in our resources.
Yeah, and you can always refer back to this video if you actually want to create a drop zone, but I'm just kind of showing you the steps. So here, this is a drop zone and it has dotted lines. So I'm actually going to put the right answer into the drop zone. And I'm going to go to Tools. And I'm going to select this tool called Infinite Cloner. And what that does is it allows me to clone any object that I have, kind of copy it over. If it works. Drag it. So 1, 20, 2. So that's the right answer that I want. And now I'm going to go to the select tool and I'm going to select my drops. Oops, sorry, right click on my drop zone. Okay, so I'm in the drop zone. I click on it and I'm going to go to add answers and points. And here's where you can decide how many points you want it to be. So I had chosen 100, but this could be 5 points. And I guess you can ignore special characters if you want to. You press save, and then the correct answer is going to disappear out of there. So Whiteboard Chat has it remembered. And now to do kind of the self-check, I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to add a link. Oh, did I go to the right place? Yes, add link. Okay, I'll add my link here. And when you add a link, you can add a link as a website, a page in the book. This is where I want to add an autocorrect because that's where you want to check your own work. So I'm going to select autocorrect and then type some directions like click to check work. And then Whiteboard.chat knows that that matches with the drop zone that you created earlier. So that's kind of how I set up the click to check your work. And then this little stoplight is also in Tools. The student signal, you actually have a couple of options for student signal that you can have students use. And here we just chose stoplight. Okay, so just kind of showing you how to do it from the teacher end.
Can I ask one quick question, Sarah, about that?
Right, yeah.
So you were showing us the infinite clone embedded within the drop zone, but if you just want to be able to do that so that kids have multiple of each, do you just click on the whatever the manipulative is and say infinite clone and then it's automatically
Yes, so you would click
multiple
on,
copies?
yep, you would click on it and you would say enable student clone.
Okay.
And that way they can make multiple copies of it.
No, I don't mean that. I meant like you had manipulatives of the hundreds things and like there were several copies on copies. So like when I dragged over the hundreds or the tens bar, there were still more tens bars behind it.
Yep. Yes.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, that was the infinite clone.
Right. So, but do you select it and then click infinite clone? Like, how do you make the manipulative an infinite clone? Is what I guess I'm asking.
Yeah. So so let's make the pig an infinite clone. So I turned on Tools, Infinite Cloner, and then selected that.
Okay. So you go on infinite clone first and then select the manipulative you want.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
Yep. Any other questions?
It's more of a classroom management with Nearpod. When a student leaves the tab, their circle turns red, so I can see that they've gone to a different tab. Is that when you're looking at the whole class, if they went to a different tab, would you notice that or no?
That's a great question. I think I do know, it does look like some of the participants do change colors, but I think you can definitely, when you go to, oops, sorry.
So I just moved to a different tab. So I was wondering if you could, so I'm not anymore on the Whiteboard Chat tab.
If you go into the grid view where you see everybody's screen, there's some like numbers that show up above each box with like some sort of percentages for engagement. Oh, I don't
So
see
Erin, you're saying though you're like not even looking at Whiteboard.chat anymore?
Right now I'm on my BPSE now.
Okay, so can you come back and let's see, because right now your circle's white.
So now I'm on Whiteboard Chat. The I'm in class. And now I'm not in class. I'm on a different tab.
Okay, so it doesn't seem to indicate.
Yeah, I don't believe it indicates whether you're on the live, if you're still on that tab.
I'm sure we all as teachers have other ways of checking. It's just for Nearpod, it's so convenient because I can be like, so-and-so, like, get back on. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna move to the next slide.
You want to go to instructor view, Sarah? Yeah, we're in slide 7, thanks. So in our next slide, I uploaded a PDF from that I saved to my computer about the moon. And prior to uploading it, it was a Word document at one point. I erased some of the text within the document. It's on slide 7, I believe. And what I want the students to do in this activity is to drag and drop the vocabulary words into the document. So first thing I did, I found this article on spacefacts.com from the moon, and I copied it into a Google Doc, and then I erased or deleted some of the text. So like after the word "the," you can see some spaces there. And then from my toolbar over to the left side, I uploaded the media. So I clicked on the camera
Okay, sorry, I have to
above the
This one.
pointer.
add media.
Add media, and no,
Oh.
not add media. Sorry, down below the tools. Sorry, below the wrench.
Upload file.
Upload file. So I uploaded a PDF and from my computer. You can also connect it to your Google Drive. If you upload a PDF that has multiple pages, all of those pages will upload into Whiteboard.chat, and they upload onto separate pages. So if you have a 4-page document, it will be on 4 different pages on Whiteboard.chat. So Sarah, if you can just scroll down a little bit, and I can just show you just, there's some more text there, and some more of the same text will be on the next slide when we get to that one. So what we have here over on the left is drag the science vocabulary into the correct space. It was a line, but so you want to right click on it and move it over. So you can drag, whether these are right or wrong, it's okay. I don't know where that just went, but that's
I
okay.
think it's I'm in the instructor board, but if I were the
No.
student version, there we go, that's easier. Sorry,
Hey, I do.
is that me?
I don't know. I was gonna say, is that my side? So if you want to do it in the student version. So if you drag and drop that text or those tiles to the space, you can see that Sarah moved it in the teacher version. And I don't think she would be able to move those. But all right, so take the
Oh, yeah.
earth, and you move. So you can move those. You can have the students move them. And again, I set them up as move. You could also have the students clone those. If we went back to the teacher board for a minute, Sarah, and if we right, excuse me, and we right click on one of those, and we would, instead of enabling to move, we would enable the students to clone. And when we click on that, it disables the student move. So the student would then be able to clone this this tile. So to make a tile, I'll show you how to do that. So from our student board, if we click on our tools, the wrench, yeah, and we scroll down to factories. There are a few different factories here, and we're going to choose the tile factory. And in the tile factory, you can create any type of tile that you would like. So let's call this, let's just type in, I think we used apple yesterday, right, Sarah? So let's type in apple. And then let's put in a comma. And we want to change the color of the tile and the color of the text. So if you look at the directions to the left, everything is separated by a comma. So text, tile color, and then text color. So let's say green for the tile color and comma red for the text color. And then I have an option here where I can allow the students to clone, move. there is a tutorial on how to make these as matching cards, almost like a memory game for the students. So if we click create. So now there is our, so click close, Sarah, because if we click it again, we get 2. We learned the other day, so we can just drag that over. Move it, and we can drag our Apple tile over. And one of the nice features in, oh, and there we go, and then the student can move it. And there we go, so they can move that tile around. One of the nice features for the teachers is that you can make these tiles and you can save them as in your own palette, in your own object. So if Sarah clicks on that, click on the tile Apple, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
And right click on it, sorry. And then at the bottom, the last choice is add to palette. So if she clicks on that, then we get a pop-up and the group name, let's name it fruit. And then we'll just type in Apple and click create. And if Sarah goes into her manipulatives, if she clicks on the name manipulative and then goes to my objects, you will see that we've now just added Apple. So we've added this tile. So we don't need to recreate these tiles if we're using them over and over again. If we're using them for reading or letter identification with our students or different math problems, you could create as a tile there also. So that is a nice feature to use or to have for your students. I'm just looking at our time. We have about 8 minutes left. So it's a.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. OBR.
So do we have, can we also add the image of an apple then just instead of just the word? So we can save it, like if we're writing a word problem and I want to include a visual for the children, we can just drag the apple that we've already created.
I believe you
Absolutely.
can. Yeah,
Probably already an Apple in here.
probably already one
Maybe an
there.
apple in the drop down menu things.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, hopefully.
it's being really slow, but
So
Yeah.
it has, yeah, there is an image of an apple.
Okay. So we can put that image on the tile if we want to.
That's a great question, Ms. OBR. I'm going to write that down if we can do that. I'll make myself a note about doing that. Go on a tile or inserting an image on a tile.
On
That
a
is a
tile,
great
yeah.
question. All right, I got that down as one of my homeworks to do, Ms. OBR. All right, so if we go to our next page. So our next page was our using our immersive reader, and the document that's going to come up is from the moon, and the immersive reader is very similar to Google's Read Write for Google. So if Sarah clicks on the tool, no, you want to no, you want to right click on the text and then choose read an immersive reader. Are the tools are the tiles saved there forever? Yes, Haruna, they're saved there forever and you can use them in another board. So here's our document, Sarah. If you can just scroll down, you can see that the whole document is here. We can, starting in the upper right-hand corner, we can change the font size. We can make it smaller or larger. We can change the font style. We can increase our spacing and we can play around with the color background if we'd like. So we can change that up for our students. We can click on the grammar and we can say, all right, let's turn this into, we're working on syllables so we can see how many syllables are in some of these words. We can have this, click on the noun and it will highlight what words are nouns, so on and so forth. And then if we click on the label, it will also have like the little N above the noun that we have checked off. So if we want to find nouns and adjectives because they go together, we can see that the adjectives and the adjectives and the nouns are all highlighted in their colors, and it has a little label above them. I'm just going a little faster, I apologize. And then under reading preferences, line focus, we have like that, that highlights just that one little space and nothing else. And then we can customize that as we're going through. One of the nice things we found was the picture dictionary. So if Sarah went and clicked on the Earth, we would see an image of the Earth and we can hear it being read to us. So it's very similar to Google's Read Write for Google. And we can also change the languages here for our students. So yesterday, I think we were playing around with Spanish with this. And if we click on the word Earth, we'll get the Spanish translation of Tierra for the Earth. So it might be good for our language, our world language teachers, as well as for our ESL students or ESL teachers. And we could actually translate the entire document instead of just by word. So it will translate the entire document into the language that you chose, which is pretty neat. And then one of the another nice feature of this is down at the bottom, you can change the speed to the voice settings. You can speed it up or slow it down. We played around with it the other day, and we definitely did not want to speed it up because it sounded like a record being, you know, a 33 record on 45. It was all squeaky and stuff like that. And then if we click on the play button, we can hear it being read aloud to us.
Earth. The moon is moving approximately 3.8.
Okay. So we can hear it being read to us. One thing we have noticed with it is that it reads line to line. So it's not very fluid in the sense of the moon is drifting away from the Earth, or, you know, the moon is moving approximately
3.8 centimeters away from our planet every.
So that is a little glitchy about it, but but it is a nice feature that is in there, and that is a nice free feature for us to use with our students.
Can I ask a question about the translation? So has anyone looked, I mean, obviously not everyone knows all the languages, but in the couple languages that people know, has anyone looked to see if the translation is actually pretty good? Because I know sometimes the translation, I'm just curious if like
Isn't always right. Yeah, it's always not the best translations. We do have to do a little bit more work on that just to make sure that it is accurate.
Yeah, it is actually, I think Whiteboard Chat has integrated with the Microsoft Immersive Reader. So it's not like their own Immersive Reader, but Microsoft, I think, is okay. But I again, I don't know for how accurate.
Nearpod has Immersive Reader as well. So I've heard from them, and they have a lot of experience with it. And they say that it's actually pretty good. But just as a aside, not all of the languages can be translated orally. So like it'll translate it, like you can see the written translation, but not all of them will speak the translation, but some of them will. So it just kind of depends on the language. But for accuracy, they're actually pretty good because they are partnered. It is a Microsoft tool.
And I see Haruna checked the Japanese and it said it wasn't that bad. So that's good to know. Good to know.
Great question, Stacey. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're just about out of time for tonight. We're at 5 o'clock. And so what we added here are some of the Whiteboard Chat tutorials. So the YouTube video that you see is exactly the same as the link that's above it. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to get more than you're able to open them up. That's what I'm trying to say. So whoa, what just happened?
Right. I was just copying the feedback form too. So
Okay. So we wanted to make sure that you had more than one option to see those tutorials. And if you open up any of their tutorials, they are very good tutorials, and they're each are about 2 to 3 minutes long. And they go through all the steps. Most of what we just did with the tiles and the drag and drop and auto corrections in there. I did put one coding one in there for you, Haruna, just for you to play around with. I think that it's one of the ones at the bottom.
Brian, so if you upload a document that have multiple pages, but you only want to select few of those pages, is it possible?
Yeah, you can delete the pages that you don't want, Ms. Obior, just this.
After you upload them?
Yeah, after you upload them. Yep. You can delete the content that you added in. Or Sarah, do you want to click on the slide sorter? Thanks, Christina. Over on the left side. So the slide sorter, if you wanted to delete a page, you just click on it and hit backspace on your keyboard. If you wanted to delete an entire page.
What does it look like when you want to find your boards from previous lessons or?
Sure. So if Sarah, if you want to click on Let's go back to the first one, Sarah. Oh, I see what you're saying. So
So
like the first time you're logging in, or if you've already logged in?
So let's say I designed a lesson for a board for Friday, not a whole lesson, not that ambitious, but, and I want, so it's today's one. So how would I go, like,
Sure.
does it look?
Sarah, can you go back to the first tab?
Or actually, no, you would just go to whiteboard.chat and you
You
can
do that.
press start
Start
drawing
drawing,
and you would go to
manage boards.
And if you aren't logged in, then you can sign in, but I'm already signed in. And here's where, I have the boards.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering what the storage system looked like. Thanks.
And then,
Sure.
Brian, do you want to show your other?
Yeah, so from there, if you go to the manage boards icon over on the toolbar, Sarah, it is
Here, you can also,
yeah, you can click on it from there also. You can click on manage boards and receive your boards from there too. So there's 2 different ways to do that. Thank you, Stacy.
so I did put the feedback form in the chat. If you have a few minutes just to fill that out, we'd love to get your feedback. But if you want to stick around and ask some more questions, we're happy to stick around as well and help answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much for your time. This is really exciting, a little scary, but also very exciting.
It is, and Sarah and I are here to help support you in everything you're taking, going to try to do with Whiteboard.chat. You have the link to the slide deck when Sarah shared with you when you went in as a student. Our emails are on there as well as our Calendlies if you want to connect with us.